Start with a brief overview of the Olympics as a global event celebrating athletic excellence. Introduce Nodar Kumaritashvili, his background, and his journey to becoming an Olympic luger. Discuss the excitement and challenges of competing on a world stage. The sport of luge. Explain what luge is in simple terms: a high-speed sledding sport where athletes lie on their backs and race down an icy track. Highlight the skills, training, and risks involved. Mention how tracks like the one in Whistler are designed to test the limits of speed and precision. The Whistler Sliding Center. Provide a description of the track, its record-breaking speeds, steep drops, and sharp curves. Discuss the reputation of the Whistler Sliding Center as one of the most challenging tracks in the world. Share any concerns raised by athletes and experts about its design before the Olympics. Nodar Kumaritashvili's preparation. Talk about Nodar's dedication to his sport, his training leading up to the Olympics, and his dreams of representing Georgia. Share details about the support from his family and country. Discuss his practice runs leading up to the tragic event. The accident. Describe what happened during the practice run on February 12, 2010, in simple terms. Explain how Nodar lost control of his sled and collided with a steel pole. Highlight the high speeds he reached, emphasizing how dangerous the sport can be. The immediate aftermath. Share details about the emergency response and efforts to save his life. Explain how the news of his death spread and shocked the world. Describe the reaction of his teammates, coaches, and the Georgian Olympic delegation. Impact on the Olympic Games. Discuss how the incident overshadowed the opening ceremonies and the mood of the Games. Share how athletes, officials, and spectators reacted to the tragedy. Highlight any changes made to the Whistler Sliding Center track after the accident. Safety concerns in extreme sports. Explore the risks involved in sports like luge and why some argue for stricter safety measures. Discuss how the tragedy sparked debates about whether pushing the limits of human ability is worth the risks. Share examples of other incidents in extreme sports and lessons learned. Remembering Nodar Kumaritashvili. Talk about how Nodar was honored at the Olympics and in his home country. Share stories from his family, friends, and teammates about his passion for the sport and his personality. Highlight efforts to keep his memory alive, such as tributes or safety initiatives inspired by his story. Conclusion. Reflect on how Nodar's story serves as a reminder of the dangers athletes face in pursuit of excellence. Emphasize the need for balancing the thrill of competition with the importance of safety. And with a message of respect for athletes like Nodar, who dedicate their lives to their passions. Brief overview of who Andres Escobar was: a talented soccer player from Colombia known for his skill and sportsmanship. Early life and rise to fame in Colombian soccer. Colombian soccer in the 1990s. The state of soccer in Colombia during the 1990s. How soccer was influenced by the country's social and political issues, including the role of drug cartels. The 1994 FIFA World Cup. Colombia's journey to qualify for the World Cup. High hopes for the team as one of the favorites in the tournament. The pressure on players from fans and other influences. The own goal incident. A detailed account of the match against the United States. Andres Escobar's accidental own goal and how it affected the game and Colombia's chances. The reaction from fans, teammates, and the media. The aftermath of the loss. Colombia's early exit from the World Cup. The disappointment and anger from fans back home. The dangerous involvement of drug cartels in betting and their reaction to the loss. Escobar's death. Events leading up to his death a few days after the tournament. Details of the night he was killed in Medellin. Reports of how his death was connected to gambling losses by cartels. The legacy of Andres Escobar. How his death became a symbol of the dangers faced by athletes in Colombia during that time. Public mourning and the impact of his death on the country. Efforts to remember him as a symbol of integrity and sportsmanship. The intersection of sports and crime. Broader discussion on how sports can be affected by external pressures like crime and corruption. Lessons learned from Escobar's story. Conclusion. Reflecting on Escobar's life and legacy. The need for safer environments for athletes and the importance of separating sports from crime. Baseball in the early 1900s. Baseball in the early 1900s was America's favorite pastime. People loved the game and would gather at ballparks to cheer for their teams. Players were seen as heroes, and fans of all ages enjoyed watching the games. Back then, the game looked a little different from what we know today. Equipment was simpler, the rules were less strict, and the focus was more on the excitement of the sport than on player safety. Players wore minimal gear. For example, batting helmets, which are standard today, didn't exist. This meant players were more vulnerable to injuries, especially from wild pitches. Despite this, baseball was considered a gentleman's game, with an emphasis on skill and teamwork. Ray Chapman, a star player. Ray Chapman was one of the most admired players of his time. Born in 1891, he grew up with a love for baseball and eventually became a key player for the Cleveland Indians. As a shortstop, he was known for his speed, agility, and sharp instincts. Fans loved watching him play because he made the game exciting. Chapman was not just talented, he was also respected for his good nature. Teammates often described him as friendly, kind, and full of life. Off the field, he was known for being humble and generous. His popularity extended beyond Cleveland, making him a well-loved figure in the league. Carl Mays, the pitcher. Carl Mays was a skilled pitcher with a reputation for being tough and intense. Born in 1891, like Chapman, he worked hard to make a name for himself in baseball. Mays played for the New York Yankees and was known for his submarine pitching style. This unique technique involved throwing the ball underhand or sidearm, making it harder for batters to predict the ball's movement. Mays was competitive and focused, but some players and fans saw him as overly aggressive. His pitches were fast and often unpredictable, which made him a challenging opponent. The 1920 game, what happened? On August 16, 1920, the Cleveland Indians faced the New York Yankees at the Polo Grounds in New York. It was a normal game until the fifth inning, when tragedy struck. Carl Mays was pitching, and Ray Chapman was at bat. Mays threw a fastball that Chapman didn't see coming. The ball struck him on the head with a loud crack, so loud that some thought the ball had hit his bat. Chapman fell to the ground, and the crowd watched in shock. Teammates and doctors rushed to his side. Although Chapman initially stood up and tried to walk, he collapsed again and was taken to the hospital. Tragically, he died early the next morning from a fractured skull. The aftermath of the incident. The news of Chapman's death shook the baseball world. Fans and players were heartbroken. His teammates struggled to continue the season without him, but they were determined to honor his memory by playing their best. Chapman's death highlighted the dangers of the sport, especially the lack of protective gear. It was a wake-up call for the league, which had never faced such a tragic incident before. Safety in baseball before the incident. Before Chapman's death, safety wasn't a big concern in baseball. Players didn't wear helmets and pitches often got dirty and hard to see as the game went on. This made it more dangerous for batters, especially when facing fast and wild pitchers like Carl Mays. The culture of the time was different too. Players were expected to be tough and deal with injuries without complaint. This attitude contributed to the lack of safety measures in the sport. How the tragedy changed baseball. Chapman's death led to significant changes in baseball. One major change was the introduction of the clean ball rule, which required pitchers to use new balls instead of dirty, hard-to-see ones. This made the game safer for batters. Over time, the league also began to focus more on player safety. Helmets eventually became mandatory for batters, reducing the risk of head injuries. Chapman's tragedy served as a reminder of how important safety is in sports. Reflection on Chapman's legacy. Ray Chapman is remembered as a talented player and a kind person. His death had a lasting impact on baseball, prompting changes that made the game safer for future generations. Fans and players continue to honor his memory, recognizing the role he played in shaping the sport we know today. Setting the stage, the 1972 Summer Olympics in Munich. Brief history of the Olympics and their significance as a global event. Description of Munich as the host city in Germany's efforts to present itself as peaceful and welcoming after World War II. Atmosphere of celebration and unity at the games before the attack. Introduction to the attackers. Background on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict to provide context for the attackers' motives. An explanation of Black September, the group behind the attack, and their goals. Details about how the attackers planned and prepared for the assault. The day of the attack. A detailed timeline of September 5th, 1972, the day the attack occurred. How the attackers entered the Olympic Village and took hostages. Description of the hostages, their roles on the Israeli team, and their experiences during the crisis. The response. How German authorities and Olympic officials reacted to the attack. Negotiation efforts and challenges in handling the situation. Media coverage of the event and its impact on the world. The tragic outcome. The failed rescue attempt at the airbase. The death of all 11 hostages and some of the attackers. Analysis of what went wrong during the rescue operation. The aftermath. Immediate reaction from the global community, including outrage and mourning. Impact on the 1972 Olympics, which continued despite the tragedy. Security changes in future Olympic Games and international events. Long-term impacts. How the attack affected international relations and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Changes in counter-terrorism strategies and Olympic security protocols. Memorials and efforts to honor the victims over the years. Lessons learned. Reflection on the broader implications of the event. The importance of security and unity in international gatherings. How the Munich massacre remains a reminder of the need for vigilance and peace.